Oh my gosh, I have this like one piece of hair and what's it doing? Hello, I am Jessie the Sleepy Koala because I am Australian and I'm always tired. Today, I'm going to do another Fall Autumn Book Tag challenge. But this time, I'm only going to do Brandon Sanderson books because I'm a huge Brandon Sanderson nerd. And when I was first looking at the challenge, my brain kept going purely to Brandon Sanderson books. And I actually had to go and force myself to find other things. But I figure because I am so deep into the Cosmere and into the Sanderson fandom, I figured why not? Let's do a Brandon theme book tag. First of all, I would like to shout out Shanna from Bionic Bookworm for creating this tag. My god, it is both fun but also kind of hard. This is probably one of the harder tags that I've looked at because I actually have to stop and think and go find books and look at my bookcase instead of just having the answer off the top of my head. But with this one, kind of had the answers off the top of my head. To get us started, question number 1. Crisp Fall Air, a book that felt fresh and new. I've been in the Brandon fandom for probably going on 4 years, sometime soon-ish. I kind of lost count. And I started with all the Cosmere books and stayed on all the Cosmere books and continued rereading all the Cosmere books. And when talking to fans, it was all Cosmere. And Brandon has other books that are not in the Cosmere universe, but I wasn't super interested in reading them because I have trouble getting into new books to begin with. Then he started talking about a new series called Skyward, which is about a girl and her spaceship who have to battle a unknown enemy. And she's going to flight school to learn how to fight this enemy. And along the way, makes a bunch of friends. And then there is a great battle at the end where Spencer, the girl, I should name her, and Mbot, the ship, who is like a talking ship. He's a sentient AI. This book was amazing. I was not expecting to get into this book anywhere near as much as I actually did. But I loved the characters and I loved the relationships between the characters. God, the character work in this is phenomenal. Everyone I know starts this book and says, wow, I really don't like Spencer, the main character. She is really childish. And by the end, she has grown up. But it's so subtle throughout the book that it's only when you get to the end that you realize there's been a change. I would say that it's one of the best character arcs that Brandon has ever written because of how subtle it is. This is actually my favorite Brandon book. I have been converted away from Cosmere to the cytoverse universe. I love this book. I would recommend this book to so many people. It's just so delightful. It really was fresh and new. It was different to the Cosmere. It was such a delight to read. It's a very, very easy read. Despite all of the themes in it and the tension and this war, it felt light to me compared to some of Brandon's other books because they're so dense. And this just wasn't that. This was much more, we're going to focus on a central plot. We're going to focus on these characters. And yes, there's world building. And my god, I do love the world building in this series. But it's not really in depth like something like Stormlight is. This is a great book. I do recommend it. Again, it's now my favorite Brandon book ever. This is my favorite, and it's not in the Cosmere. That's my spiel to try and get people to read this book. Question number 2. Howling Winds, an ending that blew you away. Now let's talk about this bad boy. Oathbringer is the 3rd novel in the Stormlight Archive series. They are all real thick boys. Like, this is massive. This is the Gulliance version that they put out initially when things are released. Gulliance actually puts out separate books of these that are split books because they are so big. But we're not here to talk about the gigantic nature of this tome that could cause physical damage if you hit someone with it. We are here to talk about the insane ending of this book. Oh my gosh. So Brandon writes his books in 5 parts, and the entire 5th part is just one giant event happening, and you see it from so many different characters' points of view, and it's so large in scope. It's also so long, which is very appropriate because all of the characters are just exhausted by what's happening. And me as a reader, I feel that too, because there's no way I'm not reading this entire part in one go. That's just never gonna happen. You just cannot stop in the middle of this. There is no stopping points, and it just keeps going, and you're like, oh, I have to keep going, I have to keep reading. And it's exhausting. You get to the end, you're like, wow, I feel like I've run so many marathons and I just want to like lie down on the floor and rest right now. This book is really good. Ending is phenomenal in this book. I love it so much. So many people that I know have the same feelings. They've read part 5, they've read the ending of this book and gone, holy crap. Brandon, that's incredible. That's amazing what you just did there. Brandon is known for his endings being massive avalanches of payoffs, and this book delivers that so well. Question number 3. Leaf Fight, a book with non-stop action. So now that we have talked about book number 3 of the Stormlight Archives, let's move on to book number 4. Rhythmofwar is a never-ending cascade of action and fighting and just adrenaline the entire book. It is really well done. There are things that happen in the middle of this book that I would never expect to happen in the middle of a book. It's like a mini Sanderlanche, to then be followed by the ending, which is always a Sanderlanche. It never stops. It's always choo-chooing ahead like a train on fast tracks. It is great. It's hard to talk about these without going into spoilers because they are so far along in the series. Just to say, it's non-stop action, and I do love it. It's not my favorite book in the series, and the action does get a little bit too much for me at times, but there is also incredible character work in this. We learn more about the world of Roshar. I love that background information. Give me that background information so I can write a Coppermind article on it. So even though this book is action-packed, it is also packed with so much more. Like Oathbringer, it's a bloody tome. This is huge. These are like over 1,000 pages. They're very, very big books. I would just recommend the Stormlight Archive. It's a great series, and book 4 is also very good. Question 4, Pumpkin Spice, your most anticipated read. So I have nothing to hold up this time because they're not even fully out yet. But in the Skyward universe, there are 3 novellas that are being released that are tangential to the 3rd book that is also coming out soon. The first one, Sunreach, has been released. It was released last week, I think. The next one, ReDawn, will be released at the end of October. Then in November, the 3rd novel, Cytonic, will be released. And then in December, the 3rd novella, Evershore, will be released. It's like this non-stop train of Skyward material. And as I mentioned before, the first book is my favorite Brandon book ever. I'm super excited about these novellas in particular because they follow a lot of the side characters that are in Skyward and look at things from their perspectives. And it's just really fascinating and kind of refreshing because this is a first-person series. It's nice and refreshing and different and intriguing to see the story from different characters' perspectives and see what they are doing separate to the main character. I should also say that these are not just written by Brandon Sanderson. They are co-written with Janci Patterson, who has done a phenomenal job with these. She has just blown it out of the water. Like, reading that first novella is such... I should have done this for the first one. It's such a breath of fresh air. I loved it so much. And on the 17th Shard Discord, we have a channel specifically for the Sunreach novellas so people can talk with spoilers. And the last few days have just been a whirlwind of crazy, of people having so much fun talking about this book and things that are in it. Last night in particular, things were insane, and there was so many amazing jokes being thrown around. I wrote a not real silly Coppermind article based on the jokes, and I love it so much. It has been great. The novella of Sunreach is incredible. I love every moment in it, and the fan reaction has been wholesome and wonderful, and I just think Brandon and Janci deserve so much praise for this novella. I am so excited for the next two. We get the next one soon. We get it in a couple of weeks. At the end of October, it's going to be so good. And then we get the next book in November, and then the third novella. I love this full speed ahead train of material we are getting. It is fantastic, and I just absolutely am so excited for it. Question number 5, Comfy Sweaters, a book that gave you the warm and fuzzies. So I actually had a lot of trouble trying to fill this one because Brandon is not really someone who writes warm and fuzzy books. However, I did remember that there is a short story that he wrote, and the reason he wrote it is heartwarming and wholesome. The story is called The Hope of Elantris. It is a short side story that Brandon wrote because there was a girl in his now wife's class who loved Elantris, and she wrote this incredibly detailed, in-depth book report on it, which Brandon's now wife Emily showed to Brandon. The thing is, this girl didn't know that Emily was dating Brandon or even knew him. Brandon was so blown away by this that he wanted to give a special thank you to the girl in Emily's class. So he wrote a short story with the main character having her name and going on this adventure. If that is not one of the most wholesome things I have ever heard, I don't know what can beat that. The coincidences there are just insane, but it turned out so nicely and so well. It's a fun little story. The story does take place after Elantris the book and has major spoilers, so just keep that in mind, that you do kind of need to read the main book first, unless you are fine with being spoiled, but you might also be a bit confused about what's going on. Question 6, last question. Bright colors, a cover with either red, orange, or yellow. So it's really hard to pick up anything except the Words of Radiance American editions, because this is what it looks like without the dust cover on. It is bright red. That is to do with the Knights Radiant Order of Lightweavers, who are featured in this book, and we learn about that order. The other books are also colored to match the different orders that they talk about. And on the front cover, there is this gorgeous emboss of the Lightweaver shard blade and the glyphs around it. Kind of hard to see, but... And again, the other book, they also have the different shard blades embossed on the front of the covers. This is, again, with the dust jacket taken off. I am not a fan of dust jackets, as I have mentioned in at least one other video where I went on a little bit of a rant about it. I don't know if that will be out before or after this one, so stay tuned, or I hope you enjoyed it. These ones actually look really pretty underneath. Having this on the front, having the different colors, it shows that it's a bit unique, and they look gorgeous next to each other on my shelf. I'm very happy with this. It's kind of hard to surpass this when looking for a book that has an autumn theme color. Even the wording on the spine is yellow, so I've got like 2 of the 3 there, even though technically this isn't the cover. I think it's close enough. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about Brandon Sanderson's books. I did try and keep it spoiler-free. I do recommend picking up pretty much anything that Brandon's read. There are different starting points to get into the Cosmere. I do have a video recorded about that. Maybe that will help if you're a bit confused of where to start. I know I definitely was, and it didn't help that because Goliant splits the Stormlight Archive books into two, I went to the bookstore and could only find part 2 of the first book. I was very, very confused. So I just started with Mistborn instead. But also, highly recommend Skyward. It's really good. There's a 4th book in the series. It will be coming out, I think, end of next year. This has been really fun. Again, I hope you enjoyed yourself. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and I will see you next time. Bye!